Hello, my name is Steve Carroll. I'm working on my solo campaign with Dungeons & Dragons Basic Rules, the 1980 edition. Which is the basic and expert rules only. I do not have the BECMI rules. This is actually, the 1980 was a basic expert companion masters and mortar rules, was a full set, but I only have these two for the 1980 edition. The original 1980s Red Book rules, basic rules, was stolen, and I was able to purchase this as a replacement, and this is a 1981 publication. This is a 1981 publication, which I got after, in like 1983, 1984. I got this, and when I was making the my Dungeon Master's reference material paperwork, the hit dice charts, hit dice monster lists, the life form type monsters, and the environmental system, monsters environmental system data, and then the campaign parameters and the game world parameters, and then I did the Orc Army chaotic leadership. I made some rules. There's rule mechanics for vampires. I listed that. And then when I did the then there's campaign rumor notes that I have, and then the original paperwork that I generated that's now obsolete, but is being used as reference materials for future reference material generation. All of this was really getting too much for me to handle, so I needed a folder, and I found this folder with the basic rules, the 1980s dungeon creation rules, the 1980 wilderness rules, the BECMI dungeon rules, the BECMI wilderness rules, the BECMI Dominion rules. Dominions basically nations. And then we have the master rules for additional campaign materials. Then there's master rules for campaigns, encounters, character aging, and what does this say? Environmental variations, wandering monsters, monster reactions, balancing encounters. Then we have procedures. Some of the lines did not get photocopied. So yeah, and then the immortal rules, there's no immortal rules here, because the immortal rules deals with realms, alternate realities to this, like the elemental planes, the outer planes, realms of power, not spheres of correction, spheres of power. Let's see here. Immortals. And so the immortal rules, the players are immortals and do not interact with this main game world setting. They, if anything, they're creating their own game world settings and interacting with existing game world settings, alternate realities and stuff, parallel universes or new galaxies within the same universe, that kind of thing. So that's what the immortal. So this campaign is basically the 1980s, which goes up to basic and expert. The way this folder 3-ring binder was before I added my campaign stuff, it was organized the 1980 basic rule, created dungeon, the BECMI created dungeon, the 1980 wilderness design rules, then a BECMI design rules, expert design rules. Then you had the BECMI companion rules and dominion rules, and the BECMI master campaign rules, additional campaign rules, all together. So basically, the way it was organized was that the 1980 rule wilderness design dungeon rules and the BECMI dungeon rules would be merged together. The 1980 wilderness rules would be merged with the BECMI wilderness rules. So that's what this 3-ring binder was about. But what I'm doing with this is I'm basically ignoring the BECMI rules for my campaign. And this right now, this 1-inch binder is going to be too small for what I'm doing for this 1980 campaign. One of the things about the 1980 campaign is with this 1980 basic and expert is that's it. So there's a total of 170 monsters. I'm guessing around 170 monsters, 75. I'm guessing around that. And both of these together. So the highest level characters are is 9th level. So let me to reposition myself. So I can get closer here. I'm going to take off the glasses. So what I've done is with the cleric class, the maximum level is 9th level. Anything below the 9th level is irrelevant. Above 9th level is irrelevant. These skills do not exist. And so you're turning dead. Okay, the turning undead chart. Anything above 9th level is irrelevant. The dwarves max out at 9th level. Anything higher than 9th level is irrelevant. Elves, same thing. Anything above 9th level is irrelevant. And so then you got the Fighters, anything above the 9th level is irrelevant. And then the halflings, they want to go to 8th level, so I created the marshals. Air sheriffs basically are the town leaders. Marshals are represents a group of towns. So they're basically the same thing as a fighter lord or, you know. And so then you have the magic users level. They max out at 9. I did change the number of spells for the 8th and 9th level. Did I do that for the... Yeah. I changed the spells for the elves also. And then the thieves max out at 9th level. Anything higher than 9th level is not available. And I'm not changing the tables. So, so when it comes to saving throws, anything above 9th level is irrelevant. So for the halflings, dwarf and half have the same thing. The 9th level doesn't change anything for that. But so that's the only rules change that I have for this campaign, this basic expert campaign. There's nothing the character level, player character level, and NPCs, and that applies to NPCs. Human fighters, human dwarves, you know, human fighters, human magic users, human thieves, human clerics. They max out at 9. Elves, dwarves, halflings, they max out at 9. So, to continue on with what I'm doing, prior to this organizational system, I was needing to complete the giant bat. I think I can't find it. I think I did the giant vampire bat or the giant bat, but since I can't find those two, I'm going to make both of those. And so yeah, so I'm going to this session is going to be environmental systems for giant bats and environmental systems for giant vampire bats. And so I have the environmental for vampires. Let's see here how do we do this. Monster hit dice. So we got the bat, the killer bee is another interesting creature. Let's see here. Robber fly. Okay, let's see here. Killer bee. They want to talk about killer bees are 1 foot long giant bees with a very vicious temper. Killer bees almost always attack on sight and will automatically attack anyone within 30 feet of their underground lair. hive. When a killer bee succeeded stings, attacks, it dies, but the creature stung must savor the poison or die. The stinger will continue to work its way into the victim, doing automatic 1 point of damage per round unless one round is spent pulling it out. A special kind of honey may be found inside the beehive. If eaten, it acts as a 1/2 strength potion of healing, creating 1d4 points of damage. This will recover all the honey in the hive, which is about 2 pints. There will always be at least 10 killer bees with the queen in or near the hive. At least 4 of these bees will have 1 hit dice each. The queen bee will have 2 hit dice and can sting repeatedly without dying. So the robber fly. Robber flies are 3-foot-long giant flies, colored with black and yellow stripes. At a distance, they look like killer bees. They are not harmed by the poison of killer bees, which are their main source of food. Robber flies are patient hunters. They often hide in shadows and wait for prey. Surprise on a roll of 1 to 4 on a d6. A robber fly can leap up to 30 feet and attack with its bite. Robber flies are meat eaters and have been known to attack humans. Let's see here. Mentors, Medusas, let's see here. Bats, bears, beetles. Okay, tiger beetles are 4 foot long, giant beetles with striped carapace, a shell covering. It's made for 10-year-olds. And usually prey on robber flies. They have been known to attack and eat humans, crushing them with their powerful mandibles. Let's see here. That's not, dragons. Giant ferrets, they hunt giant rats on the ground and some giant ferret. Okay, that's not it. So it's a fire beetle that is the robber fly. Giant lizards. Okay. Giant shrews, they're insectivorous and hunt insects, their main source of food. So these giant shrews would hunt robber flies and killer bees. So killer bees, robber flies, fire beetles, giant shrews. Okay. So with that, antelope, alpha, black pudding, black dog, camel. Okay, and here's the thing about Neanderthals. I'm just Neanderthal cavemen are known as they choose their leaders from a similar race that is much larger than the average Neanderthal. These leaders have 6 hit dice and are 10 feet tall. There will be 10 to 40 Neanderthals in the lair with 2 leaders, 1 male and 1 female. Neanderthals often hunt cave bears and keep white apes as pets. So, there is six hit dice and 10 feet tall. The smallest giant is hill giant. These are 12 feet tall and 8 hit dice. So, so how to deal with the Neanderthal giants, I don't know. Call them cave giants? Whatever. Okay. Sidetrack. But yeah, let's see here. Hawk. Let's see here. I'm looking for horses, and hydras, leeches. Ooh. Okay, my manticore, I said it, manticores are humanoids. I'm going to have to change that. They have giant toad in here, but they don't say what it is. But giant toad's also eat insects, so you can put that with a killer bee. So there is, yeah. So killer bees have, even though they don't list anything, the killer bee itself doesn't list anything. There is a ecology associated with the killer bees. The robber flies, fire beetles, and there's other, insectivores and stuff. Bats. Okay, they also bat. So you have. Let's see here what they say about giant bats. Giant bats are meat eaters. Giant bats are carnivorous, meat eaters, and may attack a party if extremely hungry. I'm skipping over the vampire bat data. So 5% of all giant bat encounters will be groups of vampire bats, and everything else under that is all about vampires. So bats, there are basically 3 kinds of bats. In real life. Pardon me for the yawning. You have the insectivore bats, the small bats that fly around, eat insects. You have meat eater bats, you have fruit bats, and then you have meat eater bats, and you have vampire bats actually. So some bats will eat birds, for example, mice, and stuff like. So those would be within the game system, within the D&D. The giant bats would be the ones that would be eating the mice and other birds and stuff like that. Pardon me. The normal bats would be your insectivores, and fruit bats, and your giant bats would also be fruit bats in real life. So So within this game, then you have the vampire bats which suck blood. I believe vampire bats are normal sized bats, but there could be large sized bats also. Damn. I'm really sleepy. So the distinction so what I'm going to do for normal bats is there are going to be two species of normal bats. You got the insectivores, and then you have the fruit bats. And then with the giant bats, you got the meat eaters, and then you'll have the vampire bats, which are the bloodsuckers. You can have giant bats that are insectivores also. But so if they can catch mice, they can catch the robber flies and the killer bees too. So the meat eaters would be that would all cover that. So the giant bats would be part of the killer bee environmental system. So, yeah, I've diverted. Skipping, forgetting about the killer bees, mythology, and their environment. How much time do I have? Only 39 minutes and 46 seconds. Okay. I got plenty of time. Just dealing with the bats. Just talking about normal bats, giant bats, vampire bats, and vampires. You have an ecology, environmental system that has that can be a Dracula type storyline environment. That's enough to do that. But dang. So with the okay, I need this as a demonstration. Experimental. Okay. Other than that, a little paper. So with the bad ecology, environmental systems, there are multiple environmental systems. You can do the vampire environment. You can do the non-vampire environment. So, and a non-vampire environment could be insectivores. So hold on. How do you want to do this? Dungeons and Dragons RPG. I've been doing this since high school, and yet still I don't always do this. And I'm 6 years old. So the Red Book rules are quoted. And I have the 1980 dated. Some of these sheets don't have the 1980. I need to add that. Environmental. Mental system. Giant bat. One, two, three, four. Dungeons and Dragons. RPG. Red Book rules. Copyright 1980. Environmental system. Giant vampire bat. And then one other piece of paper. Dungeons and Dragons. RPG. Gradebook rules. Copyright 1980. Monster. What did I say? I had it in my head. I didn't say it out loud. So this is monster environments. No monster settings. Bats. So you have types of bat. Normal, giant, giant vampire. Normal bat. Food. You have insects. And you have fruit. Giant bat. Food. Meat eater. Insectivore. Carnivore. Insectivore. Uh, Okay, and so . the vampire bat, the giant vampire bat food. Okay, I gotta change that around. Blood. Red sucker. Okay. Okay, that's the reason I was having issues with that earlier. Okay. It was at scaled 1.1, it's supposed to scale 1. Okay. The way I am doing the vampires, let's bring up the vampire notes just in case. See what that has to do. That might have information. Not fidgeting with all kinds of papers, and then so that helps a lot. Okay. So vampires. Let's see here. A monster summonings. So a vampire. Monster setting vampire. I probably should do that too. Okay, yeah, let's do that. And this is not what I was planned on doing. I did not in this session, but it's going to have to be done anyway, so. This is not scripted. This is live. I'm doing this on the fly. Okay, let's. I'm gonna put the bandana on. Helps keeps, you know. Yes, I have speech impairment, so I have to say bananas. Otherwise, it comes out bananas. So now I can do that. I can keep it on my head and won't fall down. Okay. Dungeons and Dragons RPG. Add line weight. Okay. Good line weight. Dungeons and Dragons. RPG. Red Book Rules. Copyright 1980. Monster setting. Settings. Vampire. Let's see here. Okay. So with a vampire, let's go with associated monsters. That one. That one. Okay. Associated monsters. We have normal bat. Nope, correction. Normal rat. Giant rat. normal bat. Giant bat. Normal wolves. Normal wolf. Dire wolf. Oh, that's the rock. Dinosaur poop. Okay, so I got that list from this list. And now let's go back here. Shape change human, dire wolf, giant bat, and gaseous cloud. Okay, so we don't have to do anything with that. We'll put it human. Because they are found in abandoned human locations. Ruins, deserted places, abandoned buildings. Let's see here. So now, with the vampire, because of the monster descriptions and the basic rules, there is, for me, slight confusion, or not, an ambiguity concerning the vampires. Any victim who dies from having his or her blood drained by a giant vampire bat must save versus spells or become an undead creature 24 hours after death. If D&D expert rules are used, this may be a vampire. So that's obvious that they're talking about the undead. Character dying and becoming dead is a vampire. I also interpret that as any victim dies from by a giant vampire bat The giant vampire bat is a vampire. Now, if you go into the expert rules here, we've got the vampire. Vampires are the more spirit of the undead, feeding on the blood of the living in order to survive. Vampires hunt rooms to... They are unaffected by sleep, charm, and hold spells. Vampires can only be hit with magic weapons. In human form, a vampire's touch will drain 2 life energy levels from the victim. A character slain by a vampire will return from death as a vampire in 3 days. A vampire may also attempt to charm anyone who gazes into its eyes. The victim must save versus spells to avoid the charm, with a -2 penalty on the roll. A charmed victim will be totally under the vampire's control, but cannot use spells or magic. A vampire in any form can regenerate 3 hit points per round as soon as it is damaged. If a vampire is reduced to 0 hit points, it will not regenerate, but will become gaseous and flee to its coffin. In human form, the vampire can summon 10 to 100 rats, 5 to 20 giant rats, 10 to 100 bats, 3 to 18 giant bats, 3 to 18 wolves, 2 to 8 dire wolves, if these are in the area. Weaknesses of vampires. Vampires will not come within 10 feet of any strongly presented holy symbol, although they may move to attack the person holding the symbol from another direction. A strong order of guard repels them, save versus poisoned, or cannot attack that round. Vampires cast no reflection and avoid mirrors. A vampire may take the form of a human, a dire wolf, a giant bat, or a gaseous cloud at will. This transformation requires 1 round. In dire wolf or giant bat form, the vampire will move, attack, and do damage according to the statistics for those creatures. The vampire's armor class, hit dice, morale, and saving throws remain unchanged. In gaseous form, a vampire can fly at the listed speed and has immunity to all weapon attacks. A vampire cannot attack while in gaseous form. Vampires cannot cross running water, either on foot or flying, except at bridges or while in their coffins. During the day, a vampire usually rests in its coffin, and failure to do so results in the loss of 2 to 12 hit points per day. These hit points will not be regenerated until the vampire has rested in its coffin for a full day. Destroying vampires. A vampire can be destroyed by driving a wooden stake through its heart, or by immersion in running water for 1 turn. If a vampire is exposed to direct sunlight, the creature must make a saving throw versus death ray each round, or disintegrate. Note that a continual light spell will not disintegrate a vampire, but will partially blind it, making its attack suffer suffer a -4 penalty to hit roll. If all the vampire coffins are blessed or destroyed, the vampire will weaken, taking damage as above, and will die when its hit points are reduced to 0. A vampire will always have several well-hidden coffins available. So, a vampire may take the form of a dire wolf, a giant bat, or a gaseous cloud giant at will. And 5% of giant bats are vampires. Giant vampire bats. And you have if D&D rules are used, this may be a vampire. So there are 2 ways for a character to become a vampire. Having to drain blood by a giant vampire bat, which is not a vampire, or by a vampire killing the individual. So a vampire that transforms to a giant bat, could fly amongst bats, but not be a and the giant bats are not vampire bats. So vampire, transformation, giant bat. Pardon me for yawning. So we have rat, we have bat, and we have wolf. So the vampire will occur in the environmental systems of normal rats, an environmental system of giant rats, environmental systems of normal bat, environmental system of giant bat. We're working on bats right now. Environmental system of normal wolf, and environmental system of a dire wolf. And then we have human. So deserted places, abandoned buildings. Rooms, tombs, crypts could be described as deserted places or abandoned buildings. Jeez. Tombs and crypts could be occupied by, could be in locations that are occupied actively by humans, although the tombs and crypts themselves are not frequently visited, may or may not be frequently visited. So giant bats are meat eaters. Vampire is a bloodsucker. Um, 5% of giant bat groups. Are giant vampire bats. So, okay. Okay, so let's see here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 environmental systems. Um, giant vampire bat. May be a vampire. Mm-hmm. 5% giant vampires are giant vampire bat groups. Giant vampire bat may be a vampire. So here we go. Okay, vampire mechanics. Any victim who dies from having one's blood drained by a giant vampire bat and becomes an undead creature may be a vampire. A giant vampire bat may be a vampire. Okay, I am not doing that. I got the little dots on the vampire. I'm removing that. That's what I'm doing here. So the let's see here. Number appearing 1 to 4, 1 to 6. 1 to 4 for dungeon, and 1 to 6 in the lair. So wilderness lair, okay, that's times 5. I'll verify that. Okay, let's see here. That's what I've been doing for the past 40 years. Okay, that's how I interpreted it back in 85, 86. 84 to 86. Let's see here. Number appearing gives a range for the number of monsters encountered. This number should be adjusted by the Dungeon Master to provide a fair challenge to a party of characters. The first number gives the range of monsters found in a dungeon level equal to the monster's level. Monsters may, of course, be found on levels greater than or less than the monster's level. When encountered on levels less than the monster's level, there should usually be fewer, and when found on dungeon levels greater than monster's level, there should probably be more. The number in parentheses is the range for the number of monsters encountered in the wilderness, as well as the number encountered in the monster's home lair if found in a dungeon. Monster lairs in the wilderness will usually have 5 times the normal number. So yeah, okay, I was correct. The parentheses numbers times 5 is the wilderness lair. A 0 means that the monster A 0 means the monster will only be encountered in the dungeon or wilderness if specifically placed by the dungeon master. A vampire bat group may be a group, maybe a vampire group. Or a group of vampires. Let's see here. Vampire can take the form of a human, or dire wolf, or giant bat, or gaseous. I'm looking at my notes again. So I've on the thing, I have listed, so 1 hour and 31 minutes. The vampire bat group may be a group of vampires. I'm going to see if I have that in the on this data sheet. Five percent of all bat encounters, giant bat encounters, will be a group of giant vampire bats. These may be vampires. I have an asterisk there. That's my ruling. Optional ruling. Or dang. Instead of transforming into a giant bat, the vampire transformed into a giant vampire bat. And also, this is an optional rule. Okay, I need to. 1, 2, 3, 4. Dungeon Master ruling, optional ruling. Instead of transforming into a giant bat, the vampire transforms into a giant vampire bat. If the vampire is a meat eater and not a bloodsucker, when a vampire transforms into a giant bat, he becomes a meat eater instead of a bloodsucker. Okay, let's do that rolling. A ghoul could be a demon human who has become an undead creature by a giant vampire bat. Okay. Okay, let's see here. Instead of transforming into a giant bat, the vampire transforms into a giant vampire. A vampire that transforms into a vampire bat becomes a meat eater. Wait, okay, let's do the 5% chance. Then we do the meat eater choice. Whenever a vampire bat, this is an optional ruling. A vampire transforms into a giant bat, there is a 5% chance that the vampire transforms into a giant vampire bat. Okay, I'm going to have to copy these notes down onto this. These asterisks I'm adding to this is going to have to be added to this. Continued on back. Oh, so I need to do the first of all, I'm going to do this. Okay, there we go. Come on. Okay. It's my variation of the behave from the Austin Myers, yeah, the Austin Myers, whatever, yeah, the spy. Okay. Okay, and so now one, two, three, four. And then we go with the X marks the spot. And then we go with 2. Okay, now do this. Asterisk. When a vampire transforms into a giant bat, the vampire becomes a carnivore. A carnivore is not a bloodsucker. So, there are options for the vampire when he transforms into a giant bat. Option 1. When the vampire transforms a giant bat, he is a normal giant bat that is a meat eater. Option 1. The vampire transforms into a giant bat. He transforms into a giant vampire bat. As a giant vampire bat, he is a bloodsucker. When the vampire transforms to a giant bat, option 3, when the vampire transforms to a giant bat, there is a chance that he will transform into a giant vampire bat, which means he is normally would transform into a meat eater, but there's a chance that when he transforms, he becomes a giant vampire bat, which is a bloodsucker. So either he's always so when he transforms to a giant bat, so basically when he transforms to a giant bat, he is a giant bat. 1. When he transforms to a giant bat, he is a giant vampire bat. 2 or 3, he has a chance of when he transforms to a giant bat, there's a chance of being a normal giant bat or a vampire giant bat. Now, there's another thing that could happen is a vampire there could be two types of vampires. Or actually two types of giant vampire bats. One type of giant vampire bat is, okay, wait a minute, okay. There are two types of giant vampire bats. The first is the vampire transforms into a giant vampire bat. He's a normal vampire. The second is a giant vampire bat kills a human, and the human transforms into an undead, and therefore as an undead can transform into a giant vampire bat, but is not a vampire proper. As a result, there is a lot of gray areas, or yeah, there is room for a diverse set of circumstances within the game world system setting. Okay, I need to copy notes. Vampire attempts, okay. Let's see here. Optional ruin, vampire. Vampire mechanics, I need to write this on the back. Okay, a vampire, okay, oh, I did that wrong. The asterisks should be out here. Okay, vampire group. Let's redo that. Oh, okay. Yeah, I need to reverse. Yeah, when I get down here, I can't write, so I have to flip the paper over so I can write. This interferes. And I've been doing that since my high school years. Okay. Put them on. Dang. I ate a lot of fruit and I just did not chew apparently. Okay, vampire bat group. Oops, giant vampire bat group. And then I'm gonna have to may be a group of vampires. Okay, we got that taken care of. So I know what I'm playing with, what I'm not playing with. Instead of transferring to a giant bat, the vampire transforms to a vampire bat. A ghoul could be a demi-human who has become an undead creature. But okay. Okay, that's been copied from the mechanics, so I don't need to worry about that one. When a vampire transforms to a giant bat, there is a 5% chance that the vampire transforms to a giant bat. I think that's... Okay, that's taken care of. Yeah. Okay, whenever a vampire transforms on... Okay, that's taken care of. Okay. And then the last one is when the vampire transforms into a giant bat, the vampire becomes a carnivore. The vampire becomes a captain. Yeah. Okay, and then one other note. When a vampire transforms into a giant bat, now this writing method is derived from my YouTube postings, comments and replies. I got a statement, then I go to 3 dots, and then I do a bullet points. The vampire always transform into a giant bat. The vampire, and so the X versus the asterisk is important. The vampire always transform into a giant vampire bat. The vampire may transform into this thing. Oh, that's the wrong tilt. There we go. The vampire may transform into. Right, we need to do the 3 dash. A giant bat. Or either or, okay, we're going to get rid of it, yeah, or a giant vampire bat. %5 chance. So we are now doing Dungeons and Dragons. '80. Vampire mechanics. Now, the way these mechanics are working is for this there may be, for this campaign setting, there may be one set of rules, in a different campaign setting there'll be a different set of rules. Okay. Oh. Okay, this is mathematics relating to Blood Bowl. There it is. And we're doing this. I'm going to have to get some more paper. Nope. Wait. So this is number 4. This is number 2. No, wait. Number 1 and number 2. That's way too much. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, okay. So now read wrong one, right one. This is 2. Vampire mechanics. Yes. Okay. With all the focus, I'm doing on the vampires, it seems like one would get the impression that I'm going to be doing a vampire campaign. A vampire storyline campaign. And that is a wrong assumption. What is possible is that the adventures that I'm planning on doing may or may not be a vampire storyline. The vampire storyline could be in another part of the game world. It could be in the same part of the game world, but the focus, well, depending on the environmental systems that the player character is going to start in, spawning based on Minecraft terminology. You start up the campaign where the character starts may or may not have a vampire located there. Where the player character starts may or may not pursue events associated with the local vampire, if there's a local vampire. The player may or may not pursue events that would lead to the vampire storyline that is located elsewhere from where the player character started the game world. So the deal with the environmental setting of the vampire, the environmental setting of the giant bat, the environmental setting of the normal bat, and the environmental setting, the environmental system of the giant vampire bat will allow me, by establishing these environmental sites, will allow me an option, various options as to how I want to treat the vampire bats, the vampire, the giant bats, and the normal bats in relation to each other. Whether they are independent of the vampire bats, the normal bats could be independent of vampire bats. The normal bats could be part of the vampire bats. The vampire bats may be independent of the vampire. The normal bat, so there are options. And by creating these notes, I can look at these options and say, okay, I want this environment, I want this game world environment to have these options, be this way in terms of normal bats, giant vampire bats, and vampires. I want this environment to be a different way, and then another environment to be a different way, and I can have a dozen different environments or whatever. And with the vampire rumor, some locations may have that vampire rumor, some locations may not have that vampire rumor. The vampire rumor being, it's a rare bat. the vampire has been misidentified as being a rare bat. Lycanthrope. Oh, that guy's a lycanthrope. He's a rare bat lycanthrope. He's not a vampire, he's just a lycanthrope that transforms into a bat. And that rumor is a false rumor. I'm not going to create a werebat monster for this game system. Let's see here. Time is 2 hours and 19 minutes. I think I'm going to call it a day. Okay, so let's put everything away. to hit dice. This is a, okay. So then we have that. So we see here, there's environmental system, environmental system, environmental system, environmental system. So we have a normal bat, a giant vampire bat, and a vampire. Campaign, okay. So yeah, this is all this information is directly coming from the game system, so that's that. Then we have the campaign information, then the orc tribe, yeah, that would be totally different. The orc tribe leadership with the vampire mechanics, monster settings, and monster settings bats, monster settings vampires. Rumors, and then, oh, okay, we're going to leave that section blank. Campaign rumor notes, that's different. Okay, campaign rumor notes. That will go with the vampire mechanics. Yeah. The vampire room came with while working with the mechanics. So the I'm gonna have to redo this sheet because of the errors here. Monster settings will go under the leadership. I may change this organization system a little bit. I may find more sheep protectors and add them, and then make even more subdivisions, and then rotate the subdivisions around a little bit. I got the hiccups really bad. Okay. J'ai fini for this video.